All right, so the deputy should be, yep, he's logging on there. All right, so whenever you're ready there, Chair.
Sure. Okay. Hi, Chris. Welcome to the Kingston Services Board meeting for January 21st, 2021. Is there any, we're going to go through the agenda here. Is there any disclosure of conflict of interest? Okay. And can I get approval for the agenda? Jeff, Bridget, thank you. All in favor? Good. Okay. We're going to do the adoption of the minutes. Jimmy? Jeff, thank you. All in favor? Very good. And then we're going to scroll.
We should have a motion to receive the communications.
And may I have a motion to receive the communications, please? Jeff? Bridget, thank you. All in favor? Okay. Very good. So the first item is the extension of temporary exemptions under the police records checks forms. So Angie, can you speak to that?
Yeah. So the Criminal Record Checks Reform Act places limits on the types of information that can be reported on a completed police check, depending on the type of check that you're getting, whether it's a regular check, a police record and judicial matters check, or a vulnerable sector check. So the exemptions to the police from this act removes those limitations such that police, when they're vetting police personnel, can consider other types of information, including potentially suspect information or something like that. So really the extension of the temporary regulations is extended from January 1st through to July the 1st of 2021. And that's to allow a more fulsome conversation and discussion by the ministry with stakeholders to develop a framework for permanent exemptions that will be replacing these temporary ones.
Thank you very much. Next is going to be the Reserve Parking for Electric Vehicle Charging Act. I guess people are parking in their parking spaces. And that's to do some amendments to that. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the Reserve Parking for Electric Vehicle Act amends the Highway Traffic Act with respect to electric vehicles and their charging spaces. So effective January the 1st, it creates two new offenses. And that's parking a non-electric vehicle in an electric vehicle charging station. And the other offense is parking an electric vehicle in an electric vehicle charging station that isn't connected to the charging equipment. So these HTA amendments have been added. They've got some short form wordings for tickets. And I think the set fine's about $125.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, very good. Further changes to the regulations under the Reopening Act for Ontario.
So I'm going through here. So this effective, this is again passed, but Monday the 21st, December the 21st, the public health units are assigned to different zones. So green, yellow, and at that time we were in the yellow zone, the KFLNA. There's orange zones, red zones, and then the lockdown. So it's basically describing the different jurisdictions in this memo.
Okay. And the next one is just changes to regulations, some of the things that they had changed between the last closing and this closing.
Yeah, and again, that was effective December the 26th, and it was a time limited shutdown aimed specifically at restricting points of interaction and decreasing travel between different regions in the province for non-essential activities. So again, all public health regions were assigned to the gray zone for stage 1 for 28 days for Southern Ontario. So that ended January the 23rd, and 14 days for the Northern Ontario. And then it also, the order lists stores that may open. It places that must close and are subject to conditions, and it also includes enforcement orders.
Thank you. And then there's a long list of reopening not changes, but just, I guess, follow-ups to what we've been doing.
Are we on the same one or the next one?
Oh, I think the next one's pretty much the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah, the next one is actually that's the deadline for the Community Safety and Wellbeing Act, if that's the one we're on next. And so it was originally, the deadline was for January 1st of 2021, and it's been extended to July 1st of 2021. And so, of course, we're on this with the city. It's a city initiative, and both Jeff and myself are on this one.
I guess it's just like, there's initiatives that just because of the pandemic, they weren't able to get it done in time. So they're just like pushing everything forward.
Correct. That's right.
And then next would be the submission of use of force reports.
Yes, and so police agencies have been required to submit new use of force reports forms to the ministry starting January 1st of 2021. This communique is ensuring that police agencies submit all their 2020 reports to the ministry prior to February the 16th, before we start submitting our 2021 reports. So that allows the ministry to accurately report publicly on the use of force information from 2020 and differentiating it from 2021, gives it much more accurate statistics. So it's really just for them, making it easier for them.
Thank you. Next are dealer plate changes to the RRO vehicle permits under the Highway Traffic Act.
So this specifically relates to allowing dealer plates on a light duty commercial vehicle within the dealer's inventory for private use, whether or not they are carrying goods of a private nature. And they're also not permitted to tow another vehicle. So the driver must be able to support this with proper documentation that the dealer owns the vehicle and it's part of its dealer inventory for sale, but there isn't really any prescribed documentation for this. So some vehicles may have a new vehicle information statement called an NVIS, and others, such as used vehicles, may have an Ontario permit. So there's no absolute requirement that there needs to be this vehicle registration permit on a motor vehicle displaying a dealer plate in accordance with the Section 13. So it just outlines that.
Okay. Well, obviously that happens somewhere down the road for them to have to make that into it.
Mm-hmm.
So annual reporting requirements for the violent crime linkage analysis system and major case management.
So the Police Services Act requires an annual report to be sent to the ministry regarding by-class and major case management respectively. And this is telling us that it's due this year of February the 28th of 2021.
End of February as well. Okay.
Yeah.
And you're on top of that.
Yes. Yes, I checked with Carolyn, Inspector Rice, who's in charge of that area.
Okay, very good. How about the declaration of provincial emergency under the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act, which would be EMPCA? So
this alt chiefs from the ministry outlines the new order, as you said, under the EMCPA, which came into effect January the 12th. So provincial offences officers, that's being police officers, First Nation constables, special constables, and bylaw, may order individuals attending an organized public event or other gathering prohibited under the ROA and have them dispersed. So these are new orders for our officers. They also, similarly, that they may order the premises to be temporarily closed if there's reasonable grounds to believe that an organized event or public gathering exceeds the number. And similarly, if they've got reasonable and probable grounds to believe that an individual has committed an offense, they may require that individual to provide the officer with their name, date of birth, and address. Set fines for failing to comply are $75. Obstructing a person is $1,000, and obstructing a person for performing the duty is another $1,000. So just it's outlining those new abilities that are for our officers.
Okay. And is that I think it's pretty similar to the new orders under the emergency management.
Yes, and so for the next one, yeah. So this one is the one that came in force on January the 13th.
Right.
under the EMCPA and revised orders under the ROA. And this is the stay-at-home order. So really, it's basically advising that you must stay at home unless for one of the following purposes. So you're allowed to leave your home for, there's a number of reasons for it. They're kind of under different buckets. One's for work, school, and childcare. The other is for obtaining goods and services. Third is for assisting others, health and safety and legal purposes, multiple residences and moving, traveling to an airport, bus station, and train station if you must travel out of province. And it talks about gatherings and animals. So you're allowed to leave home to care for your animal, walk your animal, get pet food, that kind of thing. It also talks about what it does not apply to. So it does not apply to homeless people, does not provide authority to enter dwellings, an officer to authority to enter a dwelling or stop a vehicle or pedestrian for the singular purpose of checking compliance with the stay-at-home order. Individuals are not compelled to explain why they're out of their residence, nor is it being outside prima facie evidence of failure to comply with this particular order. And also workers are not required to have proof from their employer that they're traveling to and from work. And there's no definition really of essential travel. Rather, it outlines what people are allowed to do. So if travel is required in order to leave the residence, then that's essential travel. It also talks about residential eviction orders that are not allowed during this time frame. There's a couple of exemptions. Remote work, unless the nature of the work requires people to be on site. Limit to outdoor gatherings is a maximum of 5 now. It used to be 10. And it limits hours for businesses that are able to remain open. Also talks about masking and distancing requirements. So individuals can now be ticketed, not just business owners, for not wearing a mask while indoors and in the businesses. It also enforces the 2-meter distance rule. And it also talks about a law enforcement support line that's available and an email address for us for guidance.
Very good.
So it just talks about how quickly these things were coming. It was difficult. You know, we respect the fact that these things are coming quickly. The government had to make some quick decisions, and these orders are coming out, and you can anticipate that there was a little bit of confusion in the communities relating to this and getting that communication out to everybody. I know that with the deputy and Staff Sergeant Armstrong and Sergeant Steve Koopman, they worked very closely with the city and city bylaw and public health, you know, to get that messaging out to our community and put it on our website and really communicate it out there to try and dispel some of the confusion or the fears that came as a result of this.
Yeah, I think the city's been doing a great job.
Yes, they have been.
Kudos to them.
Yeah, and you know, I think the other thing too is that the reality is, you know, we haven't had a whole lot of complaints, you know, since this has come up. I know the deputy had gotten a bit of information there in terms of that. Really, Kingston Police had about 19 calls with respect to this. Chris, did you want to speak to that? Or did you? I don't know if you have it in front of you there.
Yeah, actually, I have it handy. Thank you, Chief. Yes, reached out with our partners in bylaw, and between us since the December 26th, we've had approximately 33 calls. 17 of those calls were unfounded, and the other ones, they weren't egregious to the point where they could be dealt with through a warning. So we haven't had any charges in respect to since December 26th. So that we're getting the cooperation through our city, and I think you can see that across the numbers that continue to thankfully go down in our region. So kudos to the citizens of Kingston and our partners at Bylaw to helping us.
You were saying that was since December the 26th?
Correct, yes.
Okay, and that's just prior to this, the stay-at-home
Yes.
one then?
Yeah, sorry,
Okay.
yes, just prior to the stay-at-home order, but just when the lockdown started. Thank you.
That's good, thanks.
Thanks. Next is a letter from the Ministry of the Solicitor General to the board, thanking us for doing great work and working through the pandemic. And thanks to them for acknowledging that. Next is the CAPG, the webinar series. So I think that if anyone on the board would like to join in on any of those, Donna would make that available, I'm sure, as she always does. And it's always good knowledge just to have. and just to further our education on what we do. And then there's the register now for the 2021 virtual employment conference. Are we registering for that? May I ask, Donna?
It would probably be beneficial because, as you know, notice it's one registration fee for any number of individuals. So some board members have attended in the past and found it very, very beneficial. So if you like, I will register and then send the information out.
Yeah, please do. I know I'll take part in a couple for sure.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure the other board members will as well. And then we have a memorandum from the chief of police. And this is the collection of identifying information in certain circumstances.
So I'll ask that Lillian can speak to the next two because she provided the reports to us so that if there's any questions that you can follow up with her, if that's okay.
Yeah. Hi, Lillian.
And so Staff Sergeant Murdoch, and she's with our professional standards.
Okay. You have to mute yourself, Lillian.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. I thought I would just give a little bit of background on the CIICC. As I understand, there's a few newer members to the board. So the collection of identifying information in certain circumstances or prohibit duties of the CIICC as a regulation. It came into effect across Ontario in 2017, and it's been codified as a Ontario regulation under the Police Services Act. It outlines the duties and prohibitions imposed upon police officers when they're identifying information from the public. So identifying information from the public is collected, or an attempt to collect this information is made for certain purposes. So when identifying information that's collected or attempted to be collected for one of the prescribed purposes makes the interaction between the police officer and the citizen a regulated interaction. And to ensure compliance with the CIICC, all regulated interactions where identifying information was collected or attempted is reviewed by the Kingston Police Regulated Interaction Verifier. So last year in 2020, this was a duty of Sergeant Melanie Jeffries, and she reviewed our electronic database on a frequent basis for each regulated interaction for compliance. And of course, the report that you have for 2020, she's confirmed that there were no collections and or attempted collections of identifying information that triggered the subject regulation within 2020.
Thank you. That's good. And then the next memorandum, I think you're going to speak to that as well, Lillian.
Yeah, so happy to provide a brief summary of the 2020 year-end report on public complaints. The report is reflective of the 2020 calendar year, so from January 1st to December 31st. And during this time period, the Kingston Police received 26 public complaints from the Office of the Independent Review Director. Although this was a slight increase, or an increase of 8 actually from 2019, it is a little bit more reflective of what we've seen in previous years. So for 2019, as mentioned, it was an increase of 8. They had 19. In 2018, there was 29. And in 2017, there was 32. There is still one active OIPRD investigation, which our service received in December. So that investigation is ongoing right now. And there's no outstanding investigations from 2019. With respect to the local inquiry reports, we filed a total of 9 with the OIPRD for the same reporting period. And this is only a slight decrease from what we saw in 2019 reporting period, which reflected 12.
Jimmy, did you have a question?
Yes. What is those complaint most likely is about the behavioral or is just the about the duties, or what kind of complaint will we receive?
Yes, if you actually look at I'll just refer to the report that I submitted. So under number 1, it kind of gives a classification of allegations. And that includes the full total of the 26 public complaints that we received. 13 of these were screened out by the OIPRD for a number of reasons. Maybe they just weren't in the public interest. They deemed that it wasn't in the public interest for us to continue with an investigation. But I've outlined here, 5 were in relation to discreditable conduct. 5 was in regards to either unnecessary exercise of authority or use of force. 9 were in regards to neglect of duty, which may relate to an officer maybe not following a general order. And there was 6 where there was no conduct offense or service issue identified. And those 6 would be classified under the 13 that were actually screened out. Did that answer your question?
Sorry, I have a bad connection. Yes, the second part is I have a bad connection on the internet right now. So he was breaking up when he was describing. You said these numbers are increased last year than year before, or it was decreased, the complaint?
So the public complaints that we received from the OIPRD, there was an increase from 2019. There was an increase of 8. However, when we look back at previous years, so 2018 and 2017, the number that we received in 2020 is more reflective of what we've seen in previous years.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Staff Sergeant.
No problem. Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay.
Not for me, so I don't know if anybody else.
So do these complaints come from calls that have gone into the police? Like, you know, like there's something going on, I call, the police show up, and then I call back or I'm maybe a part of it, and then I make a complaint against the officer that showed up. Is that what these would be?
Yeah, the majority would be. So any kind of interaction that our officers would have with any member within the community.
And Angie, off the top of your head, it doesn't have to be a perfect number. Do you know how many calls there were last year for the Kingston police?
Yeah, well, we have, in terms of overall reports and calls that come for us, is 46,720. That'll be in the statistical report. The actual calls that actually patrol attends is roughly 25,000 to 30,000, just in that number.
Well, 26 out of, say, 26,000 calls. That's not bad. That's a good percentage. Yeah, well done. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Lillian.
Thank you.
Sorry, was there any other questions? No? Okay, good. That's the, and then we have the statistical reports.
Right. So, I'm going through here, just a sec. So when you take a look at the statistical report, it's really a comparison of what's been happening in 2020, and it compares it to other years. So as I mentioned, there are overall calls that have come through our department for 2020 has been 46,720. And so when you look at the broader categories, one can see that our crimes against persons have increased from 2019. And the driver behind this is an increase in assaults that we're seeing. So in the past recent months, our officers have been seeing an increase in assaults involving knives, you know, most recently involving a male committing 2 separate knife attacks, one at a local motel and then the next day on a city bus. And that was quite publicized at the end of the year last year. Another example involved a male wielding a machete, acting irrationally, weaving in and out of traffic. He then removed a hacksaw from his backpack and made his way to a nearby gas station when police responded and de-escalated the situation and arrested the accused, who was wearing only a t-shirt during that time in frigid weather. So it really demonstrates the volatility and unpredictable behaviors that our officers are frequently dealing with. And so we've also seen an increase in robberies compared to 2019. As an example, there's been a number involving the drug subculture, as well as a number of convenience store robberies during the summer months, which have been solved. As well, one example has captured the headlines were 6 arrested in kidnapping and a robbery. And that was where a fellow was held against his will forcibly and assaulted and threatened with weapons and a firearm, and later forced to take part in a robbery. Later, that person was in the mall and caught the attention with the accused person and caught the attention of a store clerk and was able to avoid this accused person until the police arrived. And again, a coordinated effort with the Criminal Investigation Division quickly identified the 6 involved individuals who were arrested in a timely manner, preventing any further harm, not only to the public, but to the target, to the victim himself. So another example involved two victims at McGaffin Park, where the accused approached them from behind and struck them with a blunt-edged weapon over the head numerous times, causing serious injury. And again, the accused fled the park and stole bags that each of them had. So after investigation by major crime, an Ottawa man was charged with 2 counts of aggravated assault and 2 counts of robbery. So those are some of the examples of the robberies that we've been seeing. Property crimes are down compared to last year. But within that category, one can see that break and enters have increased, and our property crimes unit has been busy. As an example, solving a rash of break-ins in the West End involving garages and sheds and bicycle thefts. In November, patrol officers arrested a male breaking into an area in an apartment complex downtown, finding possession of break-in tools, stolen checks, identification, etc. So in addition, upon the arrest, the male attempted to use bear spray on the officers and had a knife concealed in his clothing, as well as a crowbar inside the sleeve of his jacket. So this male was also wanted for the Kingston Police for outstanding break-ins throughout the city. So again, another example of good work that was done within our organization and clearing a number of break-ins that are occurring within our city. Again, another example I can give you was a 9-month shooting investigation, which began in June 2019 and involved our major crime unit, forensic identification unit, drugs and street crime, emergency response and patrol division. And basically it involved cooperative efforts also with the Toronto Police, York Police, and Correctional Services, where 3 persons were ultimately arrested in June of 2020 and charged jointly with attempted murder, break and enter, and numerous firearms related offenses. We've also seen an increase in the number of drug offenses. When you look at our statistical analysis there, and our drug unit has been had successful projects over the year in 2020, and it's resulted in 201 arrests, 352 charges, and 19 guns seized. In addition to this, there was a street value of drugs seized in 2020 was $1,004,590. Just under $68,000 of cash was seized. 8 vehicles were seized for a total value of just over $1.3 million. So we've, as I say, we've been busy. It's been some very good work done by our members, and that's sort of a nutshell of what the statistical report shows you.
Bridget.
Thanks for the report, Chief Angie. I just wonder, there's no clause there that talks to domestic violence, and if there's a more detailed report, I guess I'm a bit concerned about what's happening inside homes and the lockdown with the stay-at-home order and the pressure that COVID is placing on families.
Absolutely, it would be captured under the assaults, and certainly we've been seeing there was a spike in the summertime of some domestic violence that was occurring, but in comparison to prior years, we haven't seen that much more at this point in time. But I do know that certainly with the interval houses and so forth, there's lots of phone calls coming in, for people, especially during the pandemic, because people are kept at home. So those are our concerns for sure, that the resources are out there for them. And when we have the stay at home legislation that we just said, these orders where you're mandated to stay at home, it allows people to leave so that they can leave a situation that they need to for legal advice or for getting to safety, going to a shelter, whatever. So those are been mindfully put into the different orders as well. So just to sort of flow through with that.
Do we share that like maybe on Twitter and let people know, or in different places, to ensure that people know that they can do that, can leave that if they need to?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks.
Whenever we do file, when we report out on things, especially if it's domestic violence or sexual assaults, there's a list that we put out in the media of contact places where you can contact for help. And so our media relations officer does that as well.
Great. Yeah, communication is important. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Thank you very much. And then next is the funding agreement. Sorry,
Yes.
Jeff, did you have a question?
Jimmy had his hand up.
Oh, Jimmy, my apologies. You're muted, Jimmy.
I was muted, sorry. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Question to Chief Angie. Is any numbers or any information is included for the juvenile or the youth involved crime rate in this report?
I don't have that specifically here, but I can get some follow-up information for you on that. Unless, Chris, do you have anything, any information with respect to that from the core unit or from YCGA?
Not specifically to statistical analysis, but I can report to the board that in September, we launched a program with Youth Diversion that gives the public and parents specifically access to intersections program for youth that have, they're not really, they're not criminals. They're just, they're finding youth that are maybe making some poor choices. So we've launched this program with this partnership where parents can actually just do an online report. It comes in, our partners with the Youth Diversion are in our building working directly with our core officers, and they're able to basically make a quick intervention before a youth or child starts making bad choices and correct their path. So it doesn't really speak to the statistics, but it's one of those things where we're trying to do outreach and trying to be innovative and use our community partners to give parents some access to services during these difficult times.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Okay, and the funding agreement.
Yes, so this is this funding agreement is to participate in the provincial human trafficking intelligence-led joint forces strategy, and it just delegates signing authority to the chief and the deputy in this agreement for renewal agreements under this provincial strategy.
Yeah.
And with Jesse Braun is our officer that's involved in this strategy.
Okay. That's good. And so that those applications have gone out. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Next is.
Oh, sorry,
out
Mr.
of
Chair.
school.
We need a motion to approve that.
Oh, may I have a motion for that, please? Jeff, Christian, thank you. All in favor? Very good. And then this is Kingston City Council meeting, December 15th and 16th, 2020. New motion number.
No, you're you jumped ahead. There's a 7B,
7.
just to congratulate new promotions.
Oh, if we could do that, thank you.
Yeah, so I'll take a few of them and then Chris has got a few that we'll read out to you. So the first is congratulating Staff Sergeant Matt Funnell, who has been promoted to the rank of inspector. And so I can give you a bio for him. So Matt started his policing career in August of 1996 with the Carleton Place Police after graduating from Law and Security at Sir Sanford Fleming College. And upon joining the Kingston Police in May of 2001, Matt was assigned to uniform patrol. Less than 3 weeks later, a great personal risk to himself, Matt wrestled to safety a suicidal male or suicidal person who had been intent on jumping from a tall structure. Matt is a highly respected investigator and was selected as one of 2 officers who formed the new cold case unit in 2005. Known for his outstanding initiative and investigative tenacity, he has received numerous accolades, including a chief's commendation and praise from the Crown Attorney's Office for his excellent work on a particularly complex homicide investigation. In 2016, he was selected to receive the Ohio Award of Merit from the Ontario Homicide Investigators Association for his dedication and service, having made a lasting contribution to the profession of homicide investigations in the province of Ontario, as well as homicide training and education. He was promoted to sergeant in January of 2010, and his current rank of staff sergeant in 2014. As a staff sergeant, he'd been assigned as a platoon commander in uniform patrol, as well as the position of staff sergeant in charge of the court services unit. Matt has also been one of our incident commanders who are called out to provide qualified and knowledgeable on-scene leadership at major incidents, emergencies, and serious incidents. Matt's been awarded the Police Exemplary Service Medal in recognition of 20 years of loyal and exemplary service to public safety in Canada in 2017. And in June of 2020, he received his Bachelor of Arts from the University of Guelph-Humber. So as inspector, Matt is currently in charge of our core unit.
Great.
And the second promotion that I'll be talking about is Stephanie Morgan. And Stephanie started her policing career in 1996 with a Lunenburg Mahone Bay Police Service after graduating from the Atlantic Police Academy and after earning a Bachelor of Arts degree from the Memorial University in Newfoundland. She joined the Kingston Police in May of 2000 and was assigned to the Criminal Investigations Division in January of 2002, ultimately working with the provincial strategy to protect children from sexual abuse and exploitation on the internet. In 2005, she was commended for her initiative and thoroughness in an investigation that resulted in the successful indictment and prosecution of an international sexual predator. In fact, her work on this case earned her the praise of the assigned United States Attorney for the Middle District of Pennsylvania. Stephanie was awarded the 2009 Kingston Police Teamwork Award by her peers for how she has been the main contributor to the sense of teamwork within the criminal investigations, particularly with her assumption of the Internet Child Exploitation or ICE program, a task that she has volunteered to take on in addition to many other responsibilities in the sexual assault unit. Thanks to her hard work, the success of the ICE program became so evident that a full-time position was ultimately dedicated to this task. Stephanie was promoted to sergeant in January of 2015 and has held the position of platoon supervisor in uniform patrol, as well as one of 2 sergeants in the court office. Stephanie takes great pride in her chosen profession and promotes a strong commitment to the core values of the Kingston Police, and has also been awarded the Police Exemplary Service Medal. Upon promotion to staff sergeant, she returns to patrol as a watch commander in charge of a platoon. And so there she will share her wealth of experience to all the others on her platoon. So that's Stephanie.
Thank you.
Now let Chris follow up.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chief. I'm going to continue with our individuals who recently moved to the rank of sergeant. I'm going to start with Sergeant Clem Nasanyagam. Clem commenced his policing career with the Kingston Police in 2006 after graduating from the University of Ottawa with a Bachelor of Science in Criminology in 2005. Clem spent his first 7 years of his career in uniform patrol, and in 2013 he was transferred to the street crime unit, where he did plainclothes and uniform work for 4 years. The last 4 years of his career, Clem has worked in the drug enforcement, working tirelessly to stem the poison drug supply that has fueled the opioid crisis. Clem has been a recipient of numerous recognition awards, including a Chief Commendation in 2017, and accommodations from several partnering police agencies for his work in the area of drug enforcement. Clem has also been very involved in the area of drug education, having partnered with Queen's University Counseling Services, speaking to senior faculty members of the Limestone District School Board, and providing input into the Community Drug Action Plan. Clem is going to be working in our core unit commencing now. Second, I'd like to highlight the Sergeant Scott Huffman. Scott began his policing career with the Kingston Police in 2009, coming to Kingston with 4 years of policing experience, having obtained that with the York Regional Police and the Toronto Police. Prior to policing, Scott obtained a diploma in business administration. He came to Kingston, worked patrol for 3 years, at which point he was transferred to the Criminal Investigations Unit. Since 2012, he has worked in General Assignment section, focused primarily on property crime, and in the Major Crimes Unit, which handles everything from robbery, missing persons, stabbings, homicides. Scott has been a recipient of numerous positive accolades for his investigative work, and in 2018, he received a Kingston Police Commendation of Merit for his efforts in a complex investigation where a biological toxin was administered. The third sergeant, Sergeant Harry Brewer. Harry began his career with the Kingston Police in April 2001. Prior to joining the Kingston Police, Harry obtained a diploma in Law and Security Administration from Mohawk College. He then worked for 5 years as a correctional officer. Harry spent his first 3 years in uniform patrol, at which point he was transferred to the Emergency Response Unit. Leadership came easy for Harry. Harry quickly distinguished himself amongst his peers, becoming a TL, or a team leader, a position he held from 2006 to 2014. In 2014, he returned to uniform patrol. And then in 2017, Harry moved to the training unit, where he was able to leverage his passion for self-improvement and training as he championed scenario-based de-escalation training. During his career, Harry has received numerous positive accolades, including a Kingston Police Commendation of Merit in 2003 for his efforts in saving a suicidal male who was threatening to jump off a bridge.
Very good. Thank you. Sounds like there's a lot of knowledge just in those 4 people. Like really. Okay, so next is the Kingston City Council meeting for December 15th and 16th, 2020. New motion number 2.
Yeah, and this is really just to update, you know, advise. We had known this before, but on January the 19th, I presented to City Council on the Kingston Police budget as it was constructed to deal with concerns raised by Black, Indigenous, and persons of color, and the Black Lives Matter, and how those elements are related to other priorities in the budget. So it's really I have to say, the feedback, I packed a lot in 10 minutes. And so I probably talked a little quicker than I'd normally do, but I needed to get it all out there to kind of show all the things that we're doing in our community and addressing this situation, and then was allowing the question and answer time to kind of flow through after that. So it was a bit of a whirlwind, but I have to say that we've done lots in terms of what we're doing, you know, really outlining the fact that you know, we have a lot of government grants that we've utilized to help support our communities, not only with respect to the Risk Watch, but also the MCERT programs, and then the fact that we've used additional funding on MCERT to decrease the wait times in the hospitals, improve really the connectivity with persons in crisis to different wraparound services, and really talked a bit about the health unit, the fact that we work with the drug strategy, community strategy. We're part of that and supporting them in their 4-pillared approach. And that we've provided support for them for the overdose prevention site, the consumption treatment services site, as well as the integrated care hub. So it really went on just talking about that. And then again, I outlined other items that we've been doing that are going to be enhanced in 2021 that we'll be asking in the budget in terms of our equity, diversity, and inclusion strategy that we're working towards. And so we had lots of dialogue after that, questions and answers that occurred. You know, I know that council, you've got councillors there for some feedback. I assume that it went quite well.
Yeah, Jeff and Bridget would have been there, right?
Went really well, and it's important. The communication and all of this is so important. Councillors, we've received hundreds of emails asking us to defund the police, and it's important to have these public conversations. And you also acknowledge that racism does exist, like not just in the police force, in society at large, and including systemic. And that's an important, tough conversation, and it's hard for people to hear too. But needless to say, we actually have to be honest and recognize it and speak to it. So, and that was a great opportunity, and I think everybody really appreciated it around the horseshoe.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bridget. And so now we're so this is the Ontario Regulations 4221/97 Members of Police Services Board Code of Conduct. This is for the board members that are existing and the new board coming in, just to have some guidelines of what we are able to do, and things that we have to go by a code of conduct, just like everyone else. So for the new members, I would ask to look that over so that we don't cross any lines. And for the existing board members, maybe we should read it again. I know I did, to just refresh. Okay.
I did read it.
Very good, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Okay. And other than that, I would like to have a motion to move it. No, Jeff went like this. Jeff, what's next?
One more thing on the agenda, I think.
Pardon me?
There's a staffing update on the agenda still.
Okay, I don't have that on mine.
Couple of retirements.
Yep. This next is the stopping update.
All right, someone speak to that. I don't have it on my notes here.
Have the deputy talk about that as well. We've got 2 retirements, being the Sergeant Darren Keel and one of our civilian employees, Jacqueline Kennedy.
Thank you. Yes, I'm going to begin with Sergeant Darren Keel. Darren started out as a cadet with the Kingston Police in December 1988 and soon amassed several commendations for his response to serious incidents. In 1998, he and his canine partner, Razor, the very first canine we had, they formed that, which was a great hit with school kids and the general public. They attended special events, but they weren't so popular with the suspects. That was a new addition to the Kingston area. Darren responded to several high-risk incidents as a tactical officer in the emergency response unit for several years, and more than once put his life on the line to help ensure the safety and security of our community. During 2003 award ceremony, he was recognized for his part in preventing a suicidal man from jumping from an overpass and taking Darren and another officer with him. Darren was promoted to current rank in November 2003, and with assignments following policy and planning and the emergency response, training, and the community-oriented response units. In addition to meeting a demanding workload in these areas, Darren readily and accepted major special assignments. He assisted with several aspects of our move to the new headquarters here in October 2007. And during our preparations for our 175th anniversary in 2016, he researched the process for us to obtain our armorial bearings from the Canadian Heraldic Society, and also designed and procured for the Kingston Police our very unique tip staff, which is used in the symbolic transfer of leadership during command ceremonies. Since January 2016, Darren has been the sergeant in charge of the traffic safety, and he has spearheaded the implementation of such advanced technologies as the automated license plate recognition system and the remote piloted aircraft systems. Darren has become a particular specialist on the latter system and has been integral in the contributor into the formulation of training for this for our agency and other police agencies. Darren has been awarded the Police Exemplary Service Medal and First Bar in recognition of 30 years of loyal and exemplary service to public safety in Canada. And he's well known for his energy and positive enthusiasm. For me, this kind of comes full circle. Darren and I were new recruits together at the Ontario Police College, although at that time I was with the Toronto Police. So it's kind of coming full circle. The second individual I want to recognize is Jacqueline Kennedy. Jacqueline has been one of our communications operators since March 1989. Although television programs and movies with a police theme often concentrate on the storyline involving police officers, any response to an emergency usually starts out with the 911 Emergency Communication Center. Jacqueline has been a reassuring voice on the other end of the line for countless victims in need of help, and has been praised for her calm demeanor, her patience, compassion, and professionalism. I'm sure many people will remember in 2013, there was a large fire on Princess Street that displaced numerous people and trapped a crane operator within the fire. The crane operator was rescued by a helicopter, and throughout this, Jacqueline was part of the communication team that calmly, effectively handled this very demanding situation. She's been described by her supervisors as a mature, intelligent woman who excels in police and people skills, a pleasure to work with, and a team player with an excellent sense of humor. Certainly you need a sense of humor in there because it's a difficult, high pressure area. We thank Jacqueline for many years of service to the Kingston Police as an integral member of the communications unit, and for the many times that she's been that reassuring and helpful voice at the other end of the line.
Thank you, Chris. And do we, Donna, do we send them something from the board?
Yes, we will send them a congratulatory letter. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so may I have a motion to move in?
Jeff?
Oops.
Jared? There was also an update on the mounted unit on the agenda.
Okay, I missed that as well.
Oh,
Okay.
yes, sorry, that was under unfinished business.
Okay, sorry, there we go. So let's talk about that.
Hey,
What's going
so as background, the mounted unit Murney was unfortunately retired from the Kingston Police budget in 2020, in part to be able to hire 10 additional officers in order to backfill for those members that are away from work due to long-term absences. So, and as a result of much community support, the mounted unit was requested to continue in 2020 with the assistance of community fundraising. The pandemic has limited fundraising for everyone, including for the mounted unit. And as a result, for 2020, $5,000 has been raised for through the donations. But since then, in order to resume that fundraising, a meeting was held with Robin Tamblin of the DBIA, Bev Allenson, the Deputy Staff Sergeant Armstrong, and myself to discuss further fundraising outside of the police budget and the commitment of the Kingston Police to continue with the mounted unit as part of the downtown beat for 2021. And this continued initiative is supported by the Chief's Office and Corps because the community supported this, as well as the support from the downtown business. Sarah and Murney are much more than an ambassador for the Kingston Police, as they also perform enforcement duties and are present in areas that require extra patrol, such as the primarily downtown, but also the outdoor KP trails, the waterfront, University District, and protests, to name but a few. So we're exploring an additional connection with those most vulnerable in the downtown area and the integrated care hub for additional outreach to build bridges and connections there between the police and our vulnerable population. Fundraising will be taking place through Rob and Bev from January to the end of March 2021 in order to support this program for the year and for additional years if fundraising is successful. To date, they've met with City Finance and set up 3 ways to have the public donate funds towards the continuation of this unit. So, just to talk a little bit about Sarah, who works her 10-hour shifts, Tuesday to Friday from 7 to 5, and then again Wednesday to Saturdays. Sarah starts training in March, roughly, to approximately 4 to 5 hours per week. And typically on, splitting that 4 to 5 hours on a work day where she would train and then she would come back on the beat. And then after that, 1 day per month training. Very similar to trainings that would be done with any other specialized units that are occurring. And then she would be riding her horse between April and November. And so training is included in the costs of the fees that are being attributed to where the horses are boarded. And the Kingston Police would have access to Murney and Donovan. Donovan's the backup horse in case there's illness or injury. So in 2020, the lease agreement was for $34,958. $5,000, as I had mentioned, has been contributed, leaving $29,958 in balance. In addition, additional expenses include insurance for the vehicle and the horse, which of about $1,620. Vehicle repairs, about $859, fuel, $683, and license renewal of $265. So that's a total of $3,427. So when you take that all into account, this leaves a net cost of $33,385. So that was for 2020. So realizing that the pandemic really, and I had mentioned this before, so the pandemic has really impacted the ability to fundraise for 2020. So as a result of that, I would be requesting permission from the board, as per the board policy pertaining to police auctions, that the proceeds from the 2020 auction be utilized to help fund the mounted unit, being that shortfall that was resulted as the pandemic. So the auction proceeds are about $22,300. In combination with the fundraising would cover about 70% of the costs. The remaining $11,000 could be absorbed in the 2020 budget.
Christian.
So I was surprised that we didn't hear about this in the budget presentation, because it sounds like we've effectively done an end run around the board's decision to retire the mounted unit and have been surreptitiously using publicly allocated funds to the police force to fund a service that had been decided would be retired. So I was just trying to get an understanding about why this hadn't been brought to the board's attention previously, and to understand more also about the source of the funds that you are proposing to expend on the horse, and whether that is where those funds would normally otherwise go, and so whether there are other efforts Kingston Police would normally be supporting with those $22,000 that you're proposing, that will, as a result, not receive the support that they might be requiring or expecting?
Yeah, so I don't believe this is an end run. It was brought to the attention in May and in the board meetings that the pandemic was becoming a restriction in terms of fundraising. So this was really unfortunate. It's one of those things that's like extra expenses like we had with the masks and so forth. So you're absolutely right. We did not budget for the horse, and it was for sponsorship contributions, which was the idea that was going to happen. But because of the pandemic, that did not happen.
Could you outline precisely what efforts were made in terms of fundraising, who was approached, and where exactly you were turned down in terms of funds that you had hoped to raise, so that that the board can understand more the extent to which COVID imperiled the sources that you had already approached in support of funding for the mounted unit?
Yeah, it was actually in partnership with the city, and they had allowed us to borrow some people to help us with the fundraising, and so we had some donations through anonymous donors that initially had provided some initial funding. But I think with the way the pandemic happened, people ended up working remotely, and the funding is just wasn't there for the horse. That's all I can say is that. And once we were kind of getting better through the pandemic, the Downtown Business Association was obviously interested, very much supportive of the horse, and re-energized with the fundraising. So we have, as I mentioned, the names Rob Tamlin and let me just have some. Rob Tamlin here and Bev Allenson approached us with respect to this to develop that funding initiative. Again, have worked with Desiree from the city's finance, and have set up some accounts. And these accounts, 3 different accounts are being set up. And then once that's completed, between January and March, they will be doing some promotions to be able to get, whether it's corporate sponsorship or people that would donate towards the horse.
So can we get an understanding then if, so giving everybody the benefit of the doubt under difficult circumstances, and that you've laid out a plan to backfill for the funds for 2020, can we get a drop dead date, or can we get some sort of, when we'll receive a further update, if those funds, what sort of timeline is reasonable to say to raise the remaining funds here, and to also make sure that we're not in this position for 2021, where in 2022 we then discover that we have a significant shortfall that we have to plug retroactively. So can we get a timeline or some milestones? If we don't have that today, that's fine. Maybe we can get that for the next meeting or so.
I've mentioned to you there, we have the milestone from January to March, which was the fundraising to get enough. We have enough for the first couple of months, but the fundraising was really to start now. They needed some time to be able to set up the bank accounts. Of course, with COVID, people were away from the city to be able to help with this. So that's just being started now. So we've thought 3 months would be an amount of time that this fundraising could start, the promotions would happen. And so by the end of March, we should have some additional information for you. So that was the timeline that we proposed.
May I? Since the budget's done, can we just say that fundraising, the amounts to cover the horse must be done before the next budget? That's a lot of time. But if it's not able to happen in that time period, then may I suggest that we really do retire the horse? Is that okay?
I believe so. I mean, what we looked at is we've got the contract to the end of the year for Donovan and Murney. And so that was really the looking at being able to do this for the year and seeing how much that they would be able to fundraise, and we would assess for sure the viability as we move forward. So very much the discussion.
Okay. So you know, as long as it's within this budget of 2021, if you can cover the cost, then great.
Can you just provide an explanation? So there's $22,300 that you had mentioned from some other source that you're hoping to allocate to to the mounted unit. Can you just explain, I didn't quite understand what the source of those funds are. It seems sort of some internal revenue or something like that.
The police auction, you know, the bike auction, the auctions that we have. That's where.
And where would those funds normally be going? I'm just like, because normally they had not been allocated to the horse in the past. So I'm just wondering whether there are community organizations or other services that the police either support or police provide that as a result will not receive that funding. So I'm just trying to understand this, I guess, is a discretionary sort of amount that you have based on, I don't know, I guess bikes that get stolen that don't get picked up or something like that. Is that sort of what?
Absolutely, that's what happens. We have them twice a year. We have bike auctions, and the money comes in as a revenue stream. Can be used for the volunteers. Can be used in other areas. I'm asking permission for you from the board to be able to redirect as per the board policy towards this, so that it is not using taxpayer dollars.
And in the past, it would have been used for, like, where would the money, for instance, have gone?
They're not just going to the budget. It's not, when you pull from the auction, it doesn't go directly towards something. It's just a line in the budget. These monies came from the auction, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like you can't really say where it's not going to, because it's just all budget.
Okay, so there's not other services that we would have
No.
that we would have supported for any number of years in terms of that will now suffer as a result of this money being allocated to the mounted unit. And I'm assuming that's sort of a one-time commitment that for 2021, the fundraising would be the full fundraising for the horse.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, did you want to do a motion to that just for the 2020?
Let's do a motion for that.
amount?
Jeff? Bridget, thank you. All in favor? Good, okay. And we are going to go to in camera. May I have to move to in camera? Thank you very much, Christian, Jeff, all in favor, good. And thank you everyone for joining us today, and great work. Next.
Thank you.